Hello and welcome to Empowered Women's Project, a podcast and community made by women for women to help you live your best life and reconnect you back to the things that really matter. Today I am very excited because we are joined by one of the women that I would say has definitely shaped a huge amount of belief in myself and who I am as a woman today. Loren Lahav is a super mama of 3. She is an incredible author of 5 published books. She has been a coach and mentor and worked alongside of Anthony Robbins for the last 31 years. She has her own podcast and has really been a voice for helping women find empowerment in their own life as well. You're going to love this interview. Can't wait for so many just pieces of truth, particularly around what it looks like and what it takes to stay true, to live a life that is all about staying true to you. So let's jump in. So I am so excited to be able to welcome a beautiful friend, mentor, and role model to me, Loren Lahav. Loren, I just was doing the math. We've known each other for 17 years. Loren is a super mama of 3. She is an author of 5 incredible books, which we'll talk about. She has her own amazing podcast. She's been a coach and a mentor and a trainer with Anthony Robbins now for 31 years, and she's a kick-ass global business leader. Thank you so much for today. I'm really excited, Loren.
I just want to squeeze you through the Zoom. Anytime I see you, I know they can't see us, but I just so lit up. You know what I mean? I'm so grateful to you. I really am. And I just want to thank you, even though we're thousands and thousands of miles apart. I want you to know you hold a very, very special place in my heart. And I love watching you and following you and your family and the beautiful adventures and how you're really living life. You know, I remember where we met before you even had kids, right? And but just watching the beautiful, just love story of you and Anthony. It's a beautiful movie, is what I love it.
Thank you. Well, you have really held such a space from me, and I'm going to say thousands of women around the world, but I look at my journey of women who've influenced and shaped who I am today and who've really encouraged me to back myself and believe in myself. And you are absolutely one of those people for me. And I really wanted to have you on today to have you share some of your wisdom. You know, we kind of often joke that you're the kind of girl that gives someone a hug and a kick in the butt at the same time. And I love that about you, because true love really is the complementary opposites. It's about challenging someone and giving them not what they want, but what they need. And I think you're the perfect example of that. So one of your big messages is around helping people staying true. And we were chatting about this earlier, and I know you have lots of things to share today, but particularly, you know, we hear the phrase of like, stay true to who you are, stay true to yourself. And it's an easy phrase to say, but it's a hard one to live. And I know for a lot of our listeners, they're either maybe in the thick of mamahood, or they're juggling careers and study and partners and figuring out who on earth they are and trying to step up into their next level of greatness. So let's have it. You got the floor. I just want to sit back and listen to your beautiful wisdom.
I just, so funny, I just turned 55, as you said, it's 31 years since I started with Robbins. It started with the Basket Brigade. There were about 25 people. I didn't even know where I was. And it was someone said, let's go deliver food to the homeless. I'm like, okay, I'm in. And, my boyfriend in college had bought me Tony's book, but I never read it. And so I show up at this house in Del Mar, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm at that dude's house, the one, with the book. But let's talk about the staying true thing, and I'll share. We all have defining moments that really, I think, we have those moments that make us realize, okay, what is it really about, and what really is my message? And so I like to say that there's different stages that we go through. There's that first is like discovering who we are. Right? There's that, and isn't it beautiful to watch your daughter? I was just sharing with you a little bit about Asher, one of the stages she's going through right now, but she's discovering who she is. Like, she gets to become that. We get to write that script if
Mm.
that's what we want. So I think there's that discovering who we are. And then we're like, oh yeah, I feel like I'm in momentum. We talk a lot about momentum. Like, yeah, this feels good. This feels good. And then we get in the stage of, yeah, like I think I know who I am, right? And that's that stay true stage. And then we go through a little bit, like you said, like we're rocking. We got our career. We got it going. We're like, yeah, I know who I am. That's what happens. Then we get pregnant. We have kids, and we're like, holy doggies, like who am I? And we have to go through a rediscovery stage. I
Mhm.
think a lot of people are if you look at just age wise, a lot of people after they have their kids, they kind of go through that rediscovery stage. And then there's that, and the next stage I would talk about, which is really staying connected to who you are. And that's that sense. And it's, I don't know if it's an age thing. I kind of do think it's an age thing now that I've gotten older. I used to, I remember I was talking to Bob Proctor when I asked him to write the foreword to The Courage to Raise a Gentleman. I said, Bob, I owe you an apology. And I said, there's something to be said about experience, right? That time in the trenches. And I said, I get it now. And I
Mm.
think that part that sometimes we try to rush those stages instead of honor each stage. And what happened with regards to the staying true, it actually is a story that happened. I'd written my first book, and it was called, back then I called it No Greater Love. And back then it was 24 years ago, and not your everyday person was writing a book, only if you were like a celebrity or I don't know, a fitness professional that major book publishers were taking books on. And I'm like, I'm going to write a book. And everybody's like, what are you going to do to write a book? I'm like, I'm going to write a book about how to be a great mom. And I remember someone goes, well, you're not even a mom yet. You're just pregnant. And I'm like, I'm going to write a book because what's going to make me a great mom is the same thing that's made me great in all these other areas of my life. And so I started to write the book, and I wrote the book, and it was picked up by this major publisher, and it was a really big deal. And once again, back to Bob Proctor, I said, Bob, I don't get it. I go, why aren't people excited for me? I mean, like, I remember how excited I was when you wrote your book, or when I talk about when I was on Delta and I screamed on the plane. Everybody's like, oh, is everything okay? I'm like, oh my God, my friend, her movie's on the plane. Right? That's how I like to be, but I had to get that not everybody was excited for me. And he
Yes.
goes, it's not that they're not excited for you. They're afraid that you're going to leave them behind and you're going to find new friends.
Mm.
So,
Can I
I,
just stop you right there? Because I think that's a really big thing for anyone, whether it's a new relationship, a new career path, a new business, losing weight, whatever that might be. There is that internal fear of what if I change and my family or my friends around me don't love me or they see me differently. And so that often holds people back from changing altogether, right?
yep. And I think it's something that we need to embrace versus fear. I think
Mm.
it's one of those things we've been so conditioned to to believe that that's a bad thing instead of, wow, what, instead of like maybe it's going to cause everybody else to rise up as well.
Yes.
I think that we have, once again, like I said, like it's funny. I remember when I was a little girl, and I said to my grandmother, I go, I'm going to do the walkathon, and I was like 8 years old, and my grandmother was like, that is 20 miles. How are you going to do the walkathon? Right? And so I started to buy into like, maybe she's right. Maybe I can't do this. Maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe I am too young. Maybe I'm this and that. So I let reality pull me back in. Does that make
Mhm.
sense? For a
Yeah.
moment. But at 8 years old, for a moment, I did it. And then I looked at her because I guess little Loren was being discovered. And that, I was discovering myself. And I looked at her, I go, you know what, Grandma? I know how I'm going to do it. She goes, how are you going to do it? And I go, I'm going to do it one step at a time. And I didn't buy into the BS.
I love that.
Think that we because the truth is the dream is the reality. We just let reality pull us into why we can't do it, why we shouldn't do it.
Yes.
Why, I remember with, and I go back to even the book. I'm like, because I'm going to write a book. That's because I'm going to do that, right?
So you wrote the book, people weren't excited for you. You recognized via Bob's advice that it's not that they're not happy, they're just scared you're going to leave them behind.
Right.
That's a
So,
pretty amazing insight to have too, because it could have been so easy to take it all personally and make up a story in your head that,
and
people aren't
guess what?
happy.
I did lose I did have a lot of some people that, they talk about some people come into your life for a season, and I did have that happen, but I was also the vision that I had was bigger than, oh my gosh, are people going to be upset or this? I'm not responsible for
Yes.
how they react, right? I think that we need to understand that too. We cannot be responsible for how people react to what's going on in your life. And of course, I wanted everybody to love me, but what do I say? What's the quickest way to unhappiness is that trying to get everybody to love you, right? That everybody has to love you. So what happened? I'm getting to why the Stay True thing happened. And back in 2001, 2002, you probably remember TV, right? Like there was the Jerry Springer show, there was Oprah Winfrey, there was, I don't even know what else, Judge Judy, I don't know some of the other shows, right? Like back then, it was all about how can I get on a TV show, right? Good Morning America and all this stuff. And as you know, my best friend is a publicist, and so I did this book, and she calls me. We were living in Fiji, teaching life mastery. It was 2002. And she said, Loren, she calls me and she goes, do not screw this up. She goes, I'm just telling you, do not screw this up. I'm like, what? She goes, look, you're on the short list. You're about to get a call. You're about to get a call from a girl named Chelsea at Harpo Studios. She goes, so don't screw it up. I'm like, okay, I get it. God, don't screw it up. So this girl calls me. She goes, hi, my name's Chelsea. We have your book. Everybody loves your book here at Harpo Studios. And I'm like, okay, Lauren, don't screw this up. Don't screw this up. And she goes, we want you to do a show. And I'm like, all right. I'm like, oh my God, this is like the moment. This is the thing. This is what everybody's talking about. And she goes, we want you to do a show about how to get your husband to do more around the house. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to so screw this up, right? And I took a big deep breath and I said, I'm not your girl. And she goes, what? She goes, we want you to do a show. And I'm like, I understand, and I said, and that's when I said to myself, I said, and I thought to myself, I said, I don't want to be known as the girl that got, I don't want to be walking down the street and people going, well, that's the girl that says how to get your husband to do more around the house, right? And that might be for some people, but it wasn't for me. I wanted to be known as what you just said. I'm the girl who I'm the girl who's willing to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. I'm willing to kick you in the butt and hug you at the same time because that's who I am. And that's when I came up with if I say yes to this, if I say yes to this, am I staying true to myself? Am I staying true to my values? Am I staying true to my vision? Am I staying true to what feels right to me? That's what staying true is to me, and I think we always talk about this, right? That questions are the answers, or that you have to, and that moment changed my life. And, for a while, my friend for a while, she wasn't very happy with me, but I'm like, that could have taken me a whole different direction. And sure, things have taken a little bit longer, but I feel that I've finally become the woman that I wanted to be because because I really do ask myself that question. If I say yes to this, am I staying true to myself? And look, of course, sometimes I'm like, no, and I'm like, play this martyr. No, I'm going to do it anyway, right? But anyway, that's kind of the long of the short of the Stay True.
I love that. Well, and years later, I mean, because Harpo was Oprah's, her channel or a production, you've actually, we do kind of circle back. I know it's taken longer, but tell us
So,
about that.
okay. even though everybody can't see it, you can see it, right? So,
It's a picture of Lauren and Oprah, which is pretty amazing.
so what happened was I was scheduled to go to Liverpool to speak in Liverpool, and my the shooting had happened here in Las Vegas.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh man, I really don't feel like traveling. I really don't want to travel and just this and that. And my friend Heidi was headed, it was Oprah's Super Soul Sunday. She was bringing in all the Super Soulers to come to her house to launch her new book. And I didn't know that. I had no idea. And I said, my husband's like, you know what, Loren, maybe you shouldn't go to Liverpool. Maybe you should just stay here. You know, I heard Heidi's going to be in LA. Maybe you should go and just have a girls' weekend with her. And I'm like, okay, sounds good. And I'm like, that'd be amazing. You're sure you're supporting? He goes, yeah, just go. So Heidi calls me. She goes, and Lauren, bring your Sunday's best because we're going to go. There's a new church that's opening here in LA, and we want to go to the church service afterwards. So I'm like, all right, whatever. So we go to LA. We have a girls' day. I drove there, and so we go, and Sunday we get all dressed up, and she goes, man, Lauren, you really got dressed up like you're going to church. So I'm like, yeah. She goes, I heard it's like a gospel church. I'm like, that sounds amazing. I feel like I'm back home. And so we go and we end up, she goes, oh, the service isn't open yet. Let's go get a cup of coffee. So we went down to Coffee Bean, and she sees a couple of people that she knows. And so her eyes get all big and she goes, oh, she looks at them kind of like with these weird eyes. She goes, are you going to the same church service that we're going to? And they're like, yeah, yeah. Have you been to that church before? And I'm like, what is wrong with these people? Like something weird going on with them. And so then she goes like, see you at church. So we drive. So she tells me where to go and we start driving. I notice that we're going through a neighborhood and there's this long line of cars. And I'm like, where are we? I go, this is weird. We're in a neighborhood in Santa Barbara. And I look at her and I go, am I where I think we are? And she said, yep. And I get in and I'll tell you something. Normally, the old me, the old movie I was in, wouldn't share this story, what I'm about to share with you. But I'm finally really stepping into that next dimension that we talked about because I don't really share this part ever with anybody. And we get there and we get to valet and I get out of the car and I see Michael Beckwith. And I've known Michael for a very long time because I used to organize an event for Mary Mann and Morrissey from the Living Enrichment Center, and she had done this event many years ago before Michael Beckwith even had done The Secret. And I see him, and he goes, hey, he goes, how are you? And I'm like, great. He goes, and he looked at me and he goes, it's about time that you're here. And I was like, wow, that was weird. You know what I mean? So then I start walking down and I end up and I see Brendan Burchard. And I've known Brendan for a long time as well. I'm like, hey, Brendan. He goes, hey, Lauren. And he goes, it's about time that you're here. And I was like, what don't I see? Mm. What have I, like, not, like, why have I kind of pushed myself down not to believe that I was enough? Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I thought I was going to experience this feeling like, oh my God, Oprah. Like I thought that I was going to feel that way. Like I thought I was like, oh my God, like look at all these people that are here. Look at this. And Marie Forleo and, you know, Gabby Bernstein and Julia Roberts. And they're just people.
Yeah.
Right? And there was a sense of calm of like, I'm enough. That real sense of like, I'm good. Like this isn't like a sense of like, I've arrived. It's like, I just really knew who I was. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. I got goosebumps.
And Dr. Shivali, I was there with Dr. Shivali and her daughter, and Heidi's running around and the whole thing. And it was like almost near the end of the day. And I'm like, okay, well, this is cool. Like, maybe I'm not going to meet Oprah. Like, maybe I'm just going to, like, maybe this is just it. I should be grateful for, like, being here, right? And, like, it was crazy. Like, everybody it was pretty crazy. And so Dr. Shafali and her daughter and I are sitting there, and Heidi is, like, almost near the end of the event. And it was amazing, amazing day. Just like the Common was singing, the girl from The Color Purple. I mean, it was crazy cool. But we're almost near the end of the day, and someone brings me this little martini, and it had one of these edible words or something on it. And as I'm about to take a bite of it, Heidi goes, "It's time." I'm like, "Time for what?" She goes, "It's time for you to meet her." And I'm like, "Oh my God, like, what do you say? Like, what do you say? What do you say?" So we go up, and she had been talking to people all day long. And I go up, Heidi introduces me and introduces that I introduced her to her husband. And I'm like, "What do you say to her?" And I had just read a post that she said something and about what had happened here in Las Vegas, and I'm like, "Thank you for your beautiful post about what happened in Vegas." I said, "I think but we got to make sure that we wake up and stay awake." And she hugged me, and I'm like, "Oh my God, freaking Oprah Winfrey!" That's when my starstruck thing. I'm like, "Oh my God, like, what do I say?" And I walked away, and she hugged me for a second. I'm like, "Man, wow, that felt really just like I just, when the words just come out of your mouth." And Dr. Shafali looks at me. She goes, "Oh my God, Loren, you didn't get your picture." And I'm like, "Oh my God." And I'm like, "I can't do it." And so Dr. Shafali pushed me like back into her. And I said, "I know you're sorry." I said, "I'm so sorry." I said, "No, you're so exhausted." And she said, "No, no, that was really interesting. But the reason I bring it up to you is with what's happening in the world right now, we need to wake up and we need to stay awake. And if we're not staying true to what matters, I think you were just talking about it before, is that you said, gosh, we're spending so much good quality time together. We're really staying awake now."
Yes.
That for the first time ever, people have woken up, but that this forced pause is causing us to stay awake.
Yes.
Sometimes things happen so quickly that we don't stay awake, you know? And that's about staying true. It goes back to staying true. We're like, now we're forced to really, I don't know, like if because of proximity or being with each other or not having so many of these other options, we get to reevaluate and analyze what really does matter most.
Yeah.
So I know it's a long and short story about Oprah, but it was important because it was all about staying awake.
Yeah. And so what would you suggest then? I mean, for people like we were saying before, to say the statement to be true, to stay true versus actually following through on that, because sometimes we can say yes to opportunities because it might mean immediate dollars in the bank account, or it might mean, the ego gets a little bit, of a stroke or whatever it is. But sometimes it's scary to say no or to say yes to what truly is. It's interesting. I saw an interview recently with Matthew McConaughey, and he was talking about his latest book that's come out, and he was with Gary Vee talking about how he decided at one point that he was no longer the rom-com guy, and he didn't want to be known for that anymore. And it was 18 months of saying no and no and no. And he got a role and they were like, "Hey, it's $8 million." He said no. They made it 10. He said no. They took it up to, I think, 13 or $14 million. And he still said no. And it took 18 months of that, just letting the universe know, hang on a second, this is where I'm going. And then he landed all of these roles, which has redefined who he is. And he's totally stayed true to himself the entire
Yep.
path.
Yep.
And I love stories like that. But what can someone do to keep coming back to the staying true? Because you obviously have some amazing people around you that would help remind you to keep on path and to stay true to you, as well as your internal language. But what does someone do for themselves if they don't have that around them?
I think that's a great question, and I don't know if I've always had that around me. Honestly, I don't know if it's always been. I think I have a couple people. You and Linda have been amazing. Honestly, I could cry just thinking about how both of you have really kept me on track with that. One is I think you have to be patiently persistent. I don't think people are patient enough right now. I think that there is just this so much instant. It has to happen right now. I wasn't ready to be on that show. I wasn't ready.
Mm.
I wasn't. Yes, it could have happened. Yes, it could have been on my, whatever resume of things it had done, but I really wasn't ready. And I love what you said about the whole no thing with Matthew McConaughey. It was, I had the honor of co-authoring this lady, Amy. She owned Chicken Soup for the Soul, and when she I guess she bought it from bought the rights from Mark Victor Hansen, and Mark Victor Hansen and Jack Canfield, and my friend Joelle suggested that I do this book, Time to Thrive, with her, and she said, well, Loren, you're helping collect all these stories and reading all these stories. She goes, you have to do a story in there too. And she goes, do you have something about when when you had a moment where this was your time to thrive? And I said, absolutely. And it was all about the saying no. And what happened was I was 45 and I was, as you know, I'd gone through a divorce. I had the 3 kids. I mean, I was rocking and rolling with regards to I was on purpose. Like I had time managed my life and I was like figuring out how the hell do I just keep food on the table for my kids and keep them in, um, keep them in the schools that they were in and do everything that I needed to do. And a friend of mine called me and she had made small chat with me and I was kind of like waiting for the ask. Have you ever had that happen? It's like,
Yes.
hey, what the hell do I want? Can we just get to it? Like I love you, but let's just get to it. And she goes, hey, and I was just wondering, could you blah, 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 blah. And I was figuring out in my head how much time that it was going to take me to actually do what she was asking me to do. And I'm like, man, that's going to take me about 7 hours. I got to like really pay for like tuition. I got to do all of these things. And I remember taking a big, deep breath. This was 10 years ago. I remember taking a big, deep breath because I was a pleaser, want to make everybody happy. Still am a pleaser lots of times. I'm breaking through. But I remember taking a big, deep breath and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to have to say no. And I say that was the day that I went from being a 45-year-old little girl to a woman.
Mm.
That day that I made a real resolve and a decision that it was okay to say no. She was still going to love me anyway, but I was, once again, I said to myself, if I say yes to this, am I staying true?
Yeah.
Right? Just the question that comes on. So I think that we have to be more patient. I love to use the story about bamboo. I love to do it, but I think that that's the thing. And just really, really appreciating the journey with
Mm.
regard to that. So
Can you
yeah.
talk about the bamboo story? Because I think a lot of our listeners wouldn't have heard that.
So, and then as you can see it there in the background, right?
Mm-hmm.
I I think that the bamboo. If you think about a bamboo, you plant a bamboo seed, and you think about that bamboo seed. You plant that seed, and all people see. You talk about this dream that you have, right? And all people see is dirt. They're like, "There's no freaking tree there. What are you talking about?" And so you take really good care of that seed. You make sure that it's watered. You make sure the temperature is right. In the first year, it grows about maybe an inch. The second year, you take really good care of that bamboo seed. All people see, once again, is dirt. They don't see anything. They don't see any results. They're like, whatever, you're crazy. I don't know what you were talking about. Third year, all people see is dirt, but that bamboo tree grows about another inch. That fourth year, people are like, oh, there's nothing there. You should just give up on it. You might have had that happen to you before. Like, what are you doing? There is nothing there. There is no results that's happening. That's just dirt. Right? And that fifth year, that bamboo tree, people, could grow between 80 to 100 feet. To 100 feet. And a lot of people go, wow, that's amazing how that just grew like that. But what was it doing? It was always growing, right? And that's once again about just being patiently persistent, understanding that the growth is happening. Just because we don't see that it's like, just like sprouting out, that we don't understand. We talk about it that sometimes in business it's called liftoff, right? There's a time where your business might be like going to a certain level, going to a certain level, going to a certain level, and then everybody, boom, it just goes crazy. It's like, what the hell was that? That was amazing. That must have been that big campaign that you did. No, that was because I kept doing the do, right? Kept getting, kept consistent with everything that I was doing. That I was patiently persistent. My favorite thing to talk about is being patiently persistent. So, yeah, that to me, like I said, like I wanted same thing, and I'm sure it happened to you. I mean, look what happened to you with your movie. You guys put in so much effort for years, and then freaking Delta Airlines has it on the plane, right? In the first year, right? That didn't happen. People don't know all the conversations you had to have. People don't know all the people that said no to you. People don't know all of those things. It's like another one of my favorite phrases is, whenever you assume something, whenever you make an assumption about someone or something, ask yourself the question, maybe there's something I don't know. Maybe there's something I don't know. Do I really know how much work she put in? Do I really know the struggle that they've gone through? Do I really know the whole story, or am I making an assumption about things? So, but I mean,
Great question to ask.
And I think for me too, you know this, it breaks my heart when you see that, the statistic, I don't even know what the numbers were, and it's great that it's starting to make a shift, but it still is, 80% of the women in the marketplace are, women tearing each other down. My friend Philip always talks about, that the success of a country is all determined on how you empower young girls. That's how the country. And I had the honor many years ago it was before Asher was born. This right before I saw you. I think it was either right before or, no, it was right before I saw you. And I was going to go. I really wanted to have another baby. I was 41 years old. I was sure I was working at the Kabbalah Center. And so I was going to go to Malawi to adopt a baby.
Yes,
that's what
I
I was going to go do. And I had the plans, and my friend Jen and we were going to go over there. We had everything all set up, and then there was a divine intervention, and I got pregnant, right? So I'm like, oh my God, like, what about this trip now? And I was like, Asher was 6 months old, and I did end up going over to Malawi, and I went over, and Madonna had created a school over there for these young girls, and the outcome of the school was to help these young girls become attorneys and doctors and nurses and want to stay in their own countries. Because what happens, unfortunately, is some of us, some of our countries, we take their brightest of the brightest and leave those countries with no resources, if you would. So I think that if we really want to make the shifts in the world, we have, Madonna has an amazing movie. It's called I Am Because We Are. Right? That's about humanity really pulling together. And that's why I say to you, your win is my win is your win, right? Like, and if we can really have that kind of faith and belief and love for each other, dang, we're unstoppable.
Yeah.
That has to happen.
Well, it's either living with that lack mentality that if he or she gets it, then I'm missing out, versus that abundant mentality of like, when I win, we all win, or when she wins, we all win. And like you said earlier, it's that the rising tide lifts all boats, and it's a way of thinking. And for me, empowered women, empowered project for me right now, my focus is on raising empowered children, raising an empowered family. So the ripple effect of that, around the world. And I think the more adults that have that as an awareness, that the difference that can be made is huge. And something I just want to touch on, because ever since I've known you, contribution has been huge. Like, I've watched you get behind beautiful movements and charities and causes and create them and drive, fundraising and awareness to them, your own time. It's just been beautiful to watch, and something that I have, learned over the years as well. And I know Tony definitely speaks about this is, when you've got a cause greater than yourself, you're going to step up into a whole new level. Whether you've got, $100 in your own personal bank account or, 100 million, if you're not living for something beyond just yourself, there's a different level of fulfillment that comes about. Can you speak into that a little bit?
Absolutely, and I'd have to say mine started before, probably when I was in the womb. Parents were always, that has been foundational with everything that we've done in our life. My dad started the housing authority in North Carolina. So for low income housing, people that couldn't afford housing, he started that in the 60s when it was not a very popular thing. We got death threats all the time. I'm like, why are these people showing up at our house, right? But it was my belief is always just do the right thing every doggone day of your life, right?
Yeah.
You're doing the right thing, or Kabbalah talks about either you're adding light to the world or you're adding darkness to the world. Every time you do something good, you're adding light to the world. Every time you say something negative about somebody or something, you're adding darkness to the world. So my parents, my dad was in the Lions Club, and whether we were selling brooms or selling light bulbs, or on Christmas time, because I'm Jewish, we'd get to be the zookeeper on Christmas Day, because the zookeeper, we wanted them to, it's awesome. Who gets to say they get to be a zookeeper when they're like,
Epic.
but when my dad was, one time, a lady that worked for him, she goes, Doc, she goes, I hope you're not offended by what I'm about to say. And my dad's like, what are you talking about? She goes, well, I know you're Jewish. She goes, but I have to tell you something. And this made a big, profound impact on my life. And she said, you're the most Christ-like person I've ever met.
Hmm.
And my dad said, that's the biggest compliment that you've ever given me, ever, no, that someone's ever given me. And I look at that and I believe that all of us, right? Like, we are here to do good. We
Yes.
are here. There's a great book back there. It's called Ramdan's Ladder. And I love it because it just talks about the level of contribution. But so for me, it's it's a foundation to my life. It's not a luxury. Contribution isn't a luxury for me at all. Mark Victor Hansen, when the recession happened here in the United States in 2000, 2008, 2009, so many non-for-profit groups really suffered because people pulled back their donations. I mean, it's happening now as well, a
Mhm.
lot for, around the world. And he said, you should always tithe first, whether it be with your time, whether it be with your money, you've got to tithe first. And even when I was going through some challenging times, I never cut my tithing. And so whether it be time, whether it be, once again, whether it be financial resources, that should, one of my favorite things to give when they have a baby is piggy bank, and it's divided into four parts. One says give, save, invest, and spend. So
Yeah.
I would say from the beginning, or take four jars and teach your kids with those four jars. And when you set that as the foundation, that just becomes your life.
Yes.
Um, so that to me, like when I created the I am cards, I'm like, okay, all the proceeds from that, all of them. And I don't take a dime of that. All of the proceeds from those cards go to create blessing backpacks. That's it. That's just where it goes. This year on my 55th birthday, 5,500, blessing backpacks. But
So let's
also,
talk about that. I want to explain for our listeners. So the I am card, Lauren's created this beautiful deck, and you pull a card out and it just has the most amazing affirmation and meaning, and they're all so powerful. And the blessing bags that you do, I've been in Vegas with you when we've been packing those, and there's so many homeless people all around the world, but what you've done is created these backpacks with like toothpaste and socks and some snacks and things to brighten up their day, and you just randomly go out and gift them to people, and just being a blessing in someone's life. It is so beautiful to see.
well, last year was really profound. I think that was probably one of the most profound ones. I was with Shani and Matt, and we went, and Shani was handing this lady a bag, and the lady was like, she didn't have any feminine hygiene products,
Mm,
and she's is something to clean up. So this year, I decided to do them for mostly for women, and here in the United States, and I'm pretty sure it's over there in Australia as well, is that a single mom who has children underneath the age of 3 has to choose between diapers or food.
Wow.
So you look at so many women, I mean, find someone to help, to do to empower them. I mean, I
Mm.
remember for me, I remember when I was stress skinny, not because I like wanted, I like, but because like I wanted to make sure that my kids were being fed, right? With regards to that. So once again, asking that question, maybe there's something, I don't know. So I would do something for
Mm.
yourself, to just make sure you give back, even if it's donating $5 to a GoFundMe that you see on Facebook of someone that you don't know.
Yes.
And you will just and create those little jars or little piggy bank, whatever that it is. So, like Mark Victor Hansen said, tithe first,
Yeah.
give first.
I love that. You spoke earlier about the day that you feel like you became a 45-year-old like girl to a woman and having that no moment. I know for me personally, in my own little journey, I just hit the big 40 this year, and I've definitely gone through transformation in owning and being proud of who I am and what I have created and the value I can bring. And something I asked you before we started recording this is, I know you've got your podcast. Tell me what's the name of it. I really want to let everyone know about this. And you touched on a really cool little something, and I want you to speak into that because I think for so many people, it's easy to hide behind a phrase, a brand, a something, but to stand there and just be like, this is me, it's a little bit scary.
Yeah, yeah. So exactly. I like I said, I think that remember I had shared with you when Michael Beckwith and when Brendan Burchard said it's about time that you're here, and I'm like, what
Yes.
do I see? Like, what is it that I don't see? And I said I was coming up with the name for the podcast a couple of years ago, and I was like, yeah, it's going to be the Get Real and Stay True podcast, right? And I have
Which
like my
I think
little
is great because that's awesome message. However,
right, and then I was like, and I actually like really liked the intro, and it was really, and I was like reading, I was redoing the intro, and I'm like, this is just me. Like, this message is me. We're going to get real and we're going to stay true to what it is. And I'm going to here to kick you in the butt and hug you. I'm going to tell you the things I'm not going to tell you the things that you want to hear. I'm here to tell you the things that you need to hear. And so I like was reading through it and I'm like, why am I just not proud of who I am and what I stand for? And the people that I am this force to be reckoned with, if you would, right? And I said, everybody like my team got together and they're like, why don't you just call it the Loren Lahav podcast? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, yeah, the Loren Lahav podcast. Why not? This is what you're coming like. That you're coming like to why? I think that we once again that whole song right from The Greatest Showman. This is me. This is who I am. This is what I stand. And I was finally like really proud of who I am and what I stand for. And not everybody's gonna like me. Not everybody's gonna tune into it. I'm okay with that.
yes.
I'm not for everyone. I know I'm not for everyone. I mean, like I hear, oh my God, honest to God, someone said, I was talking to someone, they go, well, so and so just doesn't resonate with the way that you do that. I'm like, okay, that's good. That's all good. And they're like, you don't care? I'm like, okay, this is nothing about me. This is just how whatever she's projecting, if you're watching a movie, let me just tell you this. If you're watching a movie and you go, this is a really horrible movie. This is a horrible movie. A horrible movie. And you just sit there in the movie talking about what a horrible movie that it is. And all you do is bitch and complain about what a horrible movie that it is. But you don't move. You just stay in that movie. Right? Who do you blame?
Yeah.
You're blaming the movie because you don't like the movie? Get up. Get out. Go to another movie. Right? And so I think that so many times we just stay there and bitch about or complain about it or I'm like, I'm all good. If you don't like my movie, I'm all right.
Yes.
Go to a movie. So, or create, if you don't like how your life is, redesign how you are the creator. I think that another great thing, a great metaphor is that, when you look at a mountain and a part of a mountain pulls away from it, what do we call it? What do we call it when a part pulls away from a mountain?
A landslide.
Landslide, a boulder, a this, a that, but it's still part of the mountain. And sometimes we pull away from who we are. We pull away from our values. We pull away from what's important to either fit in, to, have someone like you, to do all of those things, and we pull away. And so the minute that you just go back and go, man, I'm part of the mountain. I need to remember the truth of who I am, what I stand for, what I'm about, what my message is about, who I'm here to help, what I'm here to do, what I'm here to serve, and that's when the power comes back, right? And I think there really does, you might be feeling it now in your 40s, but I really do, right now, I'm like, I'm all good. I'm all good. The right people show up. The people that need to hear my will show up. The people that want to be in my, not just anybody can, I think also is that we need to think of ourselves as someone special. I remember when I met Z and I said to him, I go, I'm a freaking catch. And he started laughing. And I'm like, no, dude, I am the freaking catch. And he goes, yeah. I go, I'm the freaking catch of the century. If I don't believe I'm the catch of the century, how's anybody else going to believe that I'm the catch of the century? So that's why, really believing in that knowingness of who you are. Mm-hmm. So anyway.
I love it. Well, as we wrap up, Loren, I'm going to put the link to your IM cards, to your website, to your podcast into the show notes so everyone can connect and get more of your beautiful inspiration. But for the person that's listening right now who knows that they're playing at a fraction of their potential, that knows that there's more and that they've been holding back, what would you say to them, have them do, listen to, take action on in your closing kind of words from today?
You know what? First thing I would say is take a big, deep breath in. I think that when you always return to the breath, you always remember what really matters to you. For the person, that is know that there's more inside of you. There is, right? But you get to create it. You are the creator of everything. So whether, you've decided to create or not create, that's your decision. But I would just say, look, the world needs us more than ever to step up into our, our true greatness. But I'm going to end with something, if you don't mind, because I just shared the book. I think I told you I bought this for everybody that, on my holiday list. If you haven't read the book, Man's Search for Meaning, read it. It's a book I must have read 31 years ago. And it's Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl, he survived the Holocaust. And he survived, he said that he had to survive because he had to tell the story. He had to, so for you, I'm sure there's a beautiful story and some beautiful lessons and some beautiful things that that you've got inside you that that you need to share. And have the courage to really do that and be daring. But I would encourage you, my homework would be to read 2 books, Man's Search for Meaning and The Alchemist. Those are the 2 books that I would say, everything's inside. We hear it all the time. Everything we need is inside of us. I think the challenge for most of us is lots of times we are going outside to get validation with regards to all of these things. So go read those 2 books. Really start to dream again. Start to dream again. Don't get sucked back into reality of telling you of what, oh, why would you do that? Why should you, why are you doing that? And start to dream again, because that's what we're here to do. I mean, look at all of the great people who, Elon Musk, I'm sure a lot of people told him he wasn't going to be able to do some of the things that he did, or Steve Jobs, or any of these people. Start to dream again. And I really love you, Kate, very much. I just respect you immensely. You're a beautiful soul, and thank you for bringing me on.
Well, thank you, Lauren. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I've loved every minute of our 17-year friendship. And I know there's lots more. I can't wait to get to squeeze you in person when, we were supposed to be seeing each other in like a week or so when I was coming to Vegas. But anyway, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you for the wisdom that you have shared. And I'll be putting all of your links into our show notes so that people can connect with you as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, wasn't that awesome? Every time that I get to spend time with Lauren, I'm always inspired, and it's always getting me to think about how I'm living my life and how true I am staying to myself. And she has such a beautiful message around that. And, just to touch on one of the points that she was speaking about as we kind of wrapped up the interview, really just understanding and knowing that one day your story, the challenge, the struggle, everything that you've been through will one day become someone else's survival guide. And it's just about staying true to the things that are really important to yourself, to your family, to your values, and not getting swayed or caught up by other people's opinions or the potential of whether it's money or credibility or whatever it might be that could cause you to say yes to something when ultimately it's not on your path. So I really hope that you enjoyed today's episode. To learn more from Loren, I will pop all the links into our show notes, but her website is lorenlahav.com, LorenLahav.com, and you can go learn more about her and all of the beautiful books and her I am cards, and see some of her events and speaking that she has done around the world as well. So thank you so much for tuning in today. Until next time, stay empowered, and look forward to speaking with you on an episode again real soon.